So let's give a rousing welcome to Mr. Mike Conaway.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, thanks for everybody for coming out this afternoon. I've got about a 4-hour speech ready to go, and I understand Shirley's just way excited about that. Let me make a few comments about things that are or are not going on in D.C. and hit some of the hot buttons that I think many of you will be interested in, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. To visit about if I don't hit on whatever it is that you wanted to talk about. Right now, D.C. is kind of a split personality. I'm not sure what the clinical diagnosis would be, if it's schizophrenia or what, but we've got policy issues of great import, tax reform, immigration, renegotiation of Medicare and Social Security. No shortage of things from a policy standpoint that we need to be dealing with. And then on the other side, we've got all these scandals that are going on, and it's just both of those demand our attention. We can't shortchange either one of them, and our team is working really hard to make sure that we pursue the policy issues, but at the same time, we're going after all of these scandals and just pick a three-letter executive branch agency that's not in the news right now with respect to having done something to a good American citizen that offends you and I. Guys, I mean, he gets up every day and he picks a fight with somebody, and that rhetoric, harsh rhetoric, constant, is listened to by the folks who work directly for him in these executive branch agencies. So it's not a far stretch for me to believe that some folks in Cincinnati who heard this president saying horrible things about conservatives and Tea Party and the folks who take a different view of the Constitution than he does, for those folks to say, hey, now, flash, most all those mid-level bureaucrats are Democrats. All right, just the mechanics of it, they're Democrats. So their boss, a guy they align with ideologically, is saying some things about some folks that they think is true now because their predisposition is to believe what this guy says. And so that tone from the top, I think, helped generate that attitude in Cincinnati that, hey, these Tea Party guys are bad people and we've got to go after them, give them a little more care, tender love and care than it was necessary, than we might have had on some other folks. And so you can see how that happens. With respect to that one in particular, my original thought was that, tone from the top, this president has some sort of link to the bad stuff that's going on. I mean, it's that tone from the top. And I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt that the White House wasn't necessarily directly involved in that conduct. And this was something these bureaucrats took upon themselves to do. And then we get another fact out, and that is that the head of the IRS has been in the White House some 157 times. Well, now we have some more facts. It's like, okay, it looks like now, to reasonable people, that we've got some additional facts. It looks like this White House may in fact have been involved in what was going on. I wished our committee, when that day that he came to the committee and was asked about that, he popped up and said, oh, they got the Easter egg roll. Well, our guy should have said, all right, smart aleck, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put a big piece of paper on the wall, and we're going to number it 1 to 157. And we're going to go through every single time you've been in the White House. And we'll start with the Easter egg roll. Gotcha. Now, number 2. And I would make that guy. Now, the good news is it would be embarrassing to him. And he's there, and he's not back at the IRS doing bad stuff. So we get a twofer on that regard. But we should have made him say, all right, if you're that flippant, and you think that this is that casual about what's going on up there, or you feel like we think that way, we're going to have a little come to Jesus meeting. You're going to go through every single one of those meetings and tell us what you did and why. Anyway, our team is trying to not front run what we think happened or why. What we're trying to do is every day get new facts out that we didn't have yesterday. And we just keep getting those facts out, keep providing you with those facts. You'll help us decide where this thing needs to go. You'll make good decisions with regard. Unlike some folks up there, I trust you with the facts, and we'll give those facts to you. So our team is going to do that every single day. We're trying to do that, whether it's IRS going after it or their license going after it, whether it's Fast and Furious, whether it's, and we've not forgotten about Fast and Furious, by the way. We're still working on that one, and we've held Holder in contempt of Congress on that one. Of course, the criminal side of that is referred to the Justice Department led by Eric Holder. Yeah. No surprise, they decided not to pursue the criminal contempt of Congress. We have a civil contempt of Congress in the courts right now that we're pushing on. That's, again, you don't see much action, but it's there. We're pushing on that one. So we're just trying to get the facts out. And we'll let those facts then lead us to what all's going on. And I think we'll, at the end of the day, make better decisions. with respect to the egregious conduct that's been occurring and that's been almost every day coming out with respect to some executive branch agency or the other. And so we can talk about any of those that you want to here in a second. Let me talk quickly about a couple of policy things that are happening or not happening. I know you've had some emphasis on the Second Amendment today, as you should. The good news about this current brouhaha over the Second Amendment is it has elevated the conversation to a point that I think is very helpful. For a long time, people thought the Second Amendment was about hunting or target practice or collecting, and that is, but that's not the key reason why the Second Amendment's in place. The Second Amendment is in place because our founding fathers knew that an armed people are freer and less susceptible to being enslaved than unarmed people are. It would have never occurred to our founding fathers to hand in their weapons to some sort of a government and then trust the government to give it back, or to give it to the Brits, for goodness sakes. So this isn't about hunting, as important as that is. It's not about collecting, as important as that is. Not about target shooting. I love to do all three. This is about the fundamental right to stand erect in front of a tyrannical government and say no, or to protect property and your physical property from some other citizen who's trying to do something to do. It's just cold-blooded as that. Now, there's been a time when that might have sounded a little radical and crazy to a lot of folks, but it no longer does because we've had this re-examination of the importance of the Second Amendment. And the Republican-led House of Representatives is not going to do anything to diminish that. Now, as your representative, I've got a duty, I think, to listen to things, proposals to how we reduce gun violence. None of us in here are for gun violence, period. And so I've got an obligation to listen to the proposals. If something makes sense, fine. But I've not heard anything that's going on so far in the Senate that makes any sense that would have any restrictions on gun violence. The only thing it will do is restrict you and my free ownership of guns as a law-abiding citizen. And I'm not interested in participating in that. So I think I'm duty-bound to listen. But you're not going to see anything come out of the House, this Republican House that we all fear. Obviously, the President's announced 2 new initiatives to start in July. He's trying to take his emphasis and the attention off of these scandals. One is the climate change initiative. He's going to crank up, try to figure out how he can put American businesses out of business one more time. And he's going to have a new gun initiative that you'll see try to reinvigorate that conversation as well. So, stick with the House Republicans. Stay alert. When the chief law enforcement officer, and it's hard to call Eric Holder the chief law enforcement officer, but we have to, given his title, is on record with the Supreme Court saying the Second Amendment does not apply. He filed an amicus curiae brief with the court on the Washington gun case, the Chicago handgun case, saying the Second Amendment does not apply to you and me as individuals. So if the chief law enforcement officer feels that way, our antenna about Second Amendment ought to be finely tuned and constantly on guard for any kind of efforts that this administration will do. He's not going to get through the House. He may try to do some things with respect to administrative things that he can do on the backside, but we'll oppose those as well. Immigration reform. The Senate has a comprehensive bill that they're working on, and as I understand it right now, I'm categorically against what they're trying to get done. The House of Representatives, on the other hand, is taking a different approach. Bob Goodlatte, Chairman of the Judiciary, wants to go at this in bite-sized pieces. Anytime the word comprehensive is used with respect to federal legislation, ought to scare the pants off of it, i.e. comprehensive health care reform. Yeah, we love that one, don't we? So we're not going to do comprehensive. We're going to take individual slices. These are the efforts, guest worker programs, and across this bill, so that they're bite-sized pieces. You and I can read the legislation itself, see what's going on. We'll see it come through committee. We'll be able to read it. You'll be able to communicate with me before we have a chance to vote on those things and make those decisions. And those will then go across the floor. Now, I'm not on judiciary, so I won't have any direct involvement in the committee work, but then once it comes to the floor, I'll have an opportunity at that point in time to make some changes to it if it's not going the direction that I think you want it to go and that I want it to go as well. So at some point in time, after we've passed several of these bills across the House floor, we may put those together in a big bill, but they will have come across in bite-sized pieces so that we don't get caught up in this comprehensive nonsense where people stick stuff in the backside that you and I don't like and disagree with, but it gets stuck in with the bigger stuff that we do like. So we'll be able to manage and control those efforts much better going at it the way that the Goodlatte wants to make that happen. One question was asked a while ago. We'll put a political hat on real quickly asked Brian Birdwell if anything was going on about keeping Texas red and all those kind of things. Here's the threat, the new threat. In the House of Representatives, U.S. House as an example, historically, most midterm, second-term elections, i.e. this coming 14, out of the party that does not control the White House generally picks up seats because people are weary of the administration. And so we've got that natural tendency going for us from a historical standpoint. The one thing that we've not faced before, and that's the Obama grassroots machine. The after-action reports from the November election show that the Obama grassroots machine just beat the dog out of the Romney grassroots machine. I mean, head and shoulders better than us. They got a higher percentage of people who didn't even know there was an election on to the polls to vote than we did, people who were mad and angry. And now he has turned that effort, which showed great results, got him reelected in spite of all the logic that said he did not deserve a second term. He has turned that whole mechanism now against House Republicans and Senate Republicans. He wants to keep the Senate, and he wants to take back the House so that his last 2 years in office will be much more like his first two, when he had 60 votes in the Senate that first year and 59 the second year. And then Nancy Pelosi had immense, she had over 250 votes in the House that first 2 years. That's what he's aiming for. Despite all the other rhetoric going on, he wants that position for his last 2 years in office, and we simply cannot, under any circumstance, let that happen. So House Republicans see the threat, we're understanding it. Our grassroots, led in no small part by Tea Party folks just like you across this country, have got to get into the breach and not let that, Democrats take back the House. Now we've got some natural advantages, like I said, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to have good candidates across this country. We're going to defend the 233 seats we currently have and try to add to that. But if we lose that fight, then this phrase ought to just scare you to death. Speaker Pelosi, right? Get you some of that, all right? So our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren very much depend on us maintaining this fight and not letting them do, particularly in Texas and across this country, what they want to. And it's going to be a pitched battle because this guy's got a lot of money, raises a lot of money, and he has focused that effort against House Republicans so that he can refer to Nancy Pelosi instead of former Speaker. He can refer to her as the Speaker. Let me stop there, and the rest of our 10 or 15 minutes together, just Q&A. Yes, sir.
Question concerning the Fort Hood murder. Seems to me we're wasting a lot of time. We're 4 years into this. He's still getting military pay and benefits. Is there any way there's a committee that can work to get a change from workplace violence to terrorism to benefit those that were wounded? They can't get their benefits because it's a workplace violence thing.
Yeah, the National Defense Authorization Act that we just passed on yesterday, includes provisions to award Purple Hearts and do those kind of things for the folks, not only in Fort Hood, but I believe a couple of guys were killed in Arkansas as well by a Islamic jihadist as well. So that's just the first step in the process to try to address that grievance. The other piece of that is why this guy is still on trial and not having been tried and on death row is amazing to me, and it's frustrating to all of us that that's going on. But at least the trial has started and we're moving that direction.
We spent 2 years talking about whether you should shave or not.
I know.
Yeah. I spent 24 years in the military, and I know they could have given him a special court-martial up front for discharging a weapon on a base.
And that
could have ended his pay right there, and they still tried him.
We caught him. They just now started the trial.
Yeah, they
4 years in November. And so you're exactly correct. I don't know why JAG has taken this long. I think it has to do with the leadership of the White House, that they move this thing slowly like this, and it is frustrating to all of us to let that happen. But we're working on that other part to get those folks the benefits that they would have gotten earned had that happened in a country.
I want to know about the farm bill. Why 80% of that money goes to food stamps?
Well, the food stamp program is built in and of itself, and over the years, since well back early 70s, in an attempt to pass the legislation, they married the safety net for farmers with the nutrition program. The Democrats did it in order to get enough votes for the food stamp to go forward. Now, that program has been unreformed since 1996, except to add money and add new monies to it, like in the stimulus plan. So it's mechanics that we've done it together so that we've got downtown Detroit folks as keenly interested in passing the farm bill as folks in farm country and rural America. And so it was a marriage to try to get to 218 votes, and a lot of conversation about that. This happens every time we do a farm bill. People have this conversation, but the numbers are getting more warped toward the food stamp program and less because we've got this farm bill that that we'll vote on next week cuts 36% of the safety net for production farm, for production agriculture out of the spending. So we're doing the right thing there. We attempt a 2% cut in food stamps. 2%. To go from 80 billion a year to 78 billion a year. And the other side, when we marked this up in committee, the other side just went apoplectic. I mean, they said we were destroying the program, we're going to starve Americans, all this kind of stuff. And there's not a budget that any of you control that I couldn't come to you and say, you got to trim 2%, and either the city or your restaurant or anything. You could do that. You might not like it, but you do it, move on, you still do your mission, and not much would change on a 2% change. The way we get at that is two pieces. One, some of the states have gone to a categorical eligibility program. It's a waiver-ish program out of the 96 Act that allows him to say, if you're on other kinds of programs, if we send you a brochure, if you make all this kind, then you qualify for a backdoor supplement of food stamps. All right? Now, food stamps say if you make more than 133% of poverty for your same family size, if you make more than that, you don't qualify. If you make less than that, you qualify. And there's an asset test too that you have to demonstrate that you've got as well. So what we're saying is, look, if you meet those criteria for food stamps by applying for food stamps on your own and you're there, fine. But if you make more money than that, you shouldn't be on food stamps, and which is eliminating categorical eligibility. Yes, we'll push people off food stamps, but the people coming off food stamps make too much money to qualify for food stamps on their own. So it's a matter of equity across the United States. The other piece is very similar, and that is if you get $1 of LIHEAP. Now, we don't get a lot of LIHEAP money here in Texas. This is a northeastern SOP to those guys, which basically is a low-income energy, something, LIHEAP, L-I-E-A-P, assistance program. If you get $1 a month, then you get a full complement of food stamps, regardless of your income, because the income levels to qualify for LIHEAP are a lot higher. So we say, all right, we're going to force the states to put $20 in there. This will trim 80% of that category of food stamps for folks making too much money, and it'll save about $8 billion of the 20 that we're talking about saving. So we're going at it the right way. The filibustered your question a little bit, Doreen, but the issue with respect to why they're together, that's been the way we've been able to cobble together the 218 votes we've needed to make it happen. The sheriff got a guilty conscience. Neither one would pass by themselves. And you got some of the conservative groups are pushing back on us because they want us to eliminate food stamps altogether. Absolutely. And as Brian said a while ago, you hit some home runs every once in a while, you hit some singles, you do a bunt, you steal a base. This 2% is a single. It's the first time we will have reduced food stamp spending since 1996. The first time we eliminate the money for all that advertising you see going on TV to try to promote people going to food stamps. We eliminate the bonuses to the states for just simply running the program properly.
Yeah, you recently co-sponsored a bill, HR 624, Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act.
Yes.
And my question to you, this is about sharing information with
voluntarily, right?
With companies that have all of our data. My question for you, with the information that the news has come out in the last week, 10 days, that they've already got all of our emails, they've got all of our telephone conversations, they've got them all in the database, the NSA does, according to news reports. How do you feel about sponsoring this bill now?
Yeah, well, I'm on the Intelligence Committee, and I've been briefed completely on what NSA can and cannot do. And I knew all of that over the last 4 years before I co-sponsored that bill. The news reports, in many instances, are incorrect. I know you'll find that shocking, but they are incorrect. Right? NSA does not have content on American phones, emails, Facebooks, none of that. We do not collect on that. It's against the law, and it is scrupulously guarded to make sure they don't.
But are we supposed to assume that they follow the laws?
That's my job, is to make sure they do. And I've got confidence in the man running, Keith Alexander, that we have a 3 or 4 layer of protection. The courts are involved constantly. The legislative branch is involved, and the executive branch are involved in making sure that we don't screw up that we don't screw up our constitutional rights to privacy. So the reports that they're collecting, emails and all that kind of stuff is unfounded and wrong. They have, yeah. People across America, overseas, non-U.S. citizens, outside the United States, don't enjoy the same constitutional rights that you and I do. Would you agree with that?
I'm wondering these days.
Okay. Well, they don't.
I mean, I hear that, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, they don't. And in an attempt to try to protect us from some really bad guys, we've got some guys who are trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Anything that involves an American citizen then transfers from the NSA to the FBI. And the FBI is bound by all the rules that go there. Now, I got the fact that it's come at a point in time where you and I, none of us trust anything that this administration is doing or is running. I got that. But we're going to have to make sure we get the facts as we move down there and don't paint everything with the same brush. But the IRS did bad things, Department of Labor's been doing bad things, the EPA's been doing bad things. It's reasonable to assume the NSA as well. But the oversight that our committee exercises throughout that whole process, I don't believe that the NSA is doing anything other than what's allowed under the existing laws, with an awful lot of lawyers involved on both sides of the issue, making sure that happens. And they are, every time that data that they do collect is looked at by anybody, there's a very handful, there's a small group of people who touch it. That has to go through a FISA court, and it has to be justified that there is in fact some link between the terrorists overseas and conduct being done overseas and some American citizens. So there's a fine line to walk, and I know that you're distrustful of it, as you should be, but I get to see the hard stuff, I get to see it, and I co-sponsored that sharing, voluntary sharing arrangement with our group. Here's the scenario. If North Korea launched a rocket at the United States, we would see it, we'd understand it, we'd interdict it. Period. Right? But what if, just for the sake of this conversation, our rules of engagement said, okay, we see the launch, we know where it's going to land, it's going to hit Vandenberg Air Force Base, and we'll take that out. It's clear the military takes that out, no one would question it. However, if the rules of engagement said, you know, if that's going to hit downtown LA, at a bank building, we can't even call the bank folks and tell them to duck. Well, that's the cyber rules of engagement we have right now. We see constantly how many thousands and thousands a day of attacks coming at .com, U.S. citizens, our emails, our attack from outside, whether it's state actors like China and Russia and Iran, or just kind of thugs that are trying to do that. We see those attacks coming, and yet our rules of engagement do not allow us to tell the private sector to duck. And this is an attempt to try to figure out how to do that on a voluntary basis. These are the attacks. This isn't data that's going to be extracted. This is the programs and the viruses that are coming at us to try to protect us from that. And we made some improvements in it. We probably should have changed the name from last year's bill because we have made some improvements based on some things concerns folks have. But it is focused on trying to allow us to say, all right, the brightest folks we've got at cyber warfare and cyber attacks in this country is NSA. And they protect .gov, they protect .mil, and you see that even then, the bad guys get through. But they don't get to help protect .com, .edu, and the other domains that you and I conduct our private business in. They don't get to help protect them. And this bill simply says, we're trying to figure out a way that these ISPs, which is the portal from which all this overseas stuff is coming, can be warned and share classified data on the threats and the viruses. And if they, in fact, can share the viruses and the data that they individually see with each other to make sure that we stop as many of these attacks. And there are thousands and thousands of attacks a day that are coming at us.